July 1945, Downton Abbey. I am looking for a Mr. Thomas Barrow. A young boy answered the door. Black, wavy hair, protruding nose, beady eyes. He was almost as tall as Ernst, and he tried to smile kindly. Constable Pickering had driven to the bottom of the driveway in one of the Hull City Police Station cars. He had got out of the car as Ernst looked up the half-mile walk up to the huge estate house, and taken his hand. "Keep in touch, lad," Constable Pickering told him. "Here," he added, and pressed some money into his hand. "Your train fare back." "You know the trains?" "Downton, York, Hull," Ernst told him, and smiled. "I am very grateful to you, Mr. Pickering," he added, pocketing the money. He had no idea what the coins were worth. But Sergeant Bott had, very swiftly, taken up all of the coins that Ernst had laid on the table at the police station. He had been very interested in those, Ernst had thought. The boy looked up to him. "Is he expecting you?" "No, not really." Beside the boy, a girl appeared. She looked at Ernst curiously. "Is Mr. Barrow here?" Ernst repeated. "You talk really strange," the boy told him. "That's rude, Larry," said the girl, still peering round the door. The boy shot his head round to her. "Mum will have a fit, if she finds you've left the kitchen, Flora Parker," he warned her. "Then she won't find out," the girl said, without taking her eyes off their visitor. "And not as much as the one you'll have, how you've spoken to a visitor." The boy looked back to Ernst, fear in his eyes. "I did your homework for you, Larry Parker," the girl continued, accusingly. Ernst stood there, patiently. The boy nudged the girl, who pushed him back. "Or, the Lord of Downton?" Ernst tried. The girl laughed. "Silly. Lord Grantham, Mr. George. He's away," she told him. "Shush, will yer?" Larry told his sister, putting a finger to his lips. "Careless talk costs lives." The girl looked crossly up to her brother. "The war's over, stupid." "Or didn't you know, Mr. Barrow?" Ernst said, hoping to regain control of the conversation. "I'll take you through," said the girl, stepping past the boy. "I'm Flora Parker." "You're—" But before Ernst could answer, the boy shouldered past his sister. "No, I'll take yer through, it is my job to," he added, pulling the door open. And Ernst Scholz stepped into the hall his mother once walked, towards the servants' dining room. "Is he exposing you?" "No," Ernst replied. Larry Parker pulled to a halt outside a door. He knocked, but more it seemed out of routine rather than no, not really. "Mr. Barrow is not terror. I am the housekeeper, Mrs. Bates. I am looking for a Mr. Thomas Barrow, and what would you be wanting with him?" "Because he is written here, on this wedding certificate," showed it to Mrs. Bates. "You can wait for him here," said Mrs. Bates. "He will be back at Downton shortly." Tall man, black hair, pale face, terrible expression. "Yes, Mount name is S. Looking for Melissa Ashbd. She is my mother." September 1925. "Are you quite well, Mr. Barrow?" Thomas turned, as he was about to go through the door that led to the back steps. He turned at Lady Mary's voice, arranging his face into an acceptable appearance. "My lady," Thomas began. He was aware that Mary Crawley was examining his face. What she hoped to find there was anyone's guess, but she seemed to have found something, and continued. "I saw Miss Ashby at Mr. Carson's wedding. Did you know she was coming?" "Yes, my lady," Thomas lied. He had only found out via the letter she had written to Mrs. Hughes. "At least, I knew she had been invited, and she came, which I was very pleased about." And he hoped that would be enough. But clearly not. Lady Mary continued with her precision interrogation, as Thomas's heart sank. She did, however, seem to be aware of her line of questioning and said, "I do not wish to pry, Barrow," but she disappeared very quickly. That was because she came across someone she did not wish to see. It was out before he could stop it, and the look of intrigue on Lady Mary's face was devastating. "He has not made himself amenable to Milo's favor in the past," he added, and sighed, his own fears spilling over. "And because of this, she will not now come back to Downton." Of this, Thomas could not be sure, but he could infer. Milo had heard what Tom Branson had said, She knew he was intending to stop at Downton Abbey now, so of course she would never choose to stay. I have been promoted to acting butler in Mr. Carson's stead, Thomas had written, along with other information he thought she might be interested in. He had made sure it had been sent to her address at the top of the Cavendish laboratory, as he had 3 others. But she had not replied. "I am sorry to hear that," Mary Crawley told him, choosing not to ask anything further of him. "Please pass on my thanks that she came to make Mr. Carson's and Mrs. Hughes's day. I know they were delighted with the glass." Thomas smiled and nodded, wondering how long they would be delighted with it when they got up in the night and saw its apparition. "Thank you, my lady," Thomas told her. "I will go to supervise Lady Painswick's luncheon," which Thomas managed to stir up. He was jealous, he would admit it, to himself only, of course. If only Gwen had not been so stuck up. It had been Lady Mary who had thanked him for reminding them all that Gwen had been a maid, which had led to the memories of Sybil. But his lordship had been scathing, and his inferiors, the other staff downstairs, had been rebellious. What was it to do with them? Surely Thomas had been doing them a favour, making sure that their positions were not belittled. It had been Lord Grantham's words which had remained with Thomas, that he should show kindness, like Carson, and that he should remember that in his future position. And he had said it as if to imply Thomas's future did not lie at Downton Abbey. 88,888,888. So Thomas resolved to be kinder. Andy, who had expressed an interest in farming, had been loaned books by Mr. Mason on the basics of the craft. But he had been seen coming out of Andy's room, and conclusions had been drawn. A picnic had been arranged, and Thomas had noticed one of the baskets had not been brought. The reaction to him bringing it had been cool, at best, further added to the advice he had been given by the head teacher at the village school to stop teaching Andy to read. "I have the latest research in how to teach reading," Thomas told him. "My wife sent it from Cambridge." And at the thought of Milo, Thomas's heart fell. He had not heard from her for weeks, and his letters had not been answered. Perhaps she was away. But she hadn't told him. "I can understand your keenness," the teacher told him, condescendingly, "and that you have gone to the trouble of approaching a Cambridge school." Well, he could not even admit that Thomas had tried to act for Andy here, although Milo had offered. How could that man call himself a teacher when he was treating Thomas like that? "You do understand?" "Oh, I understand perfectly," Thomas answered. He shared the same sentiment with Mr. Molesley a month later when he still had not heard from Milo. Molesley had been accepted to be a teacher at the school. He passed Thomas on the doorstep as he crossed the yard to go out, and Thomas was stepping in. He had gone to the village to buy some things he needed. It might be the last thing Thomas ever bought. Indeed, he meant it to be. "Good luck in your life, Mr. Molesley," Thomas told him, clapping him on the back with an effort that felt as if he was being drained of life. "I hope you make a success of your life. I know I haven't with mine." Joseph Molesley relayed this back to Phyllis Baxter on his walk down to the village, as Thomas Barrow made his way up to the top floor of Downton Abbey. The razor blade was sharp. Good. The bath water should be hot. It would circulate the blood faster. No thoughts were in Thomas Barrow's head now, other than to get the job done. To get the job done meant an absolution of all of his sins, all the sins that had caused snide comments, and intimations of loss of position. The sin of marrying without love, and trapping a woman, whose life, though she was too good to say it, was encumbered by him. Would he meet Ernest Ashby in the next life? Was there indeed a next life? Thomas Barrow hoped so. He would dearly like there to be. The bath was run. Thomas stripped off to his long johns and vest. It was hot enough. And he thought of the pain in his body, pain in his head, from everything and everyone he had hurt from his attraction towards men. Carson had called it foul. But loving Ernest was never foul. His love for Ernest Ashby had been pure and beautiful and life-giving, especially knowing Ernest had felt the same. And he had done something that Thomas never could. He had told Harold Ashby, had told his father of his tender, patient, kindly love for Thomas Barrow. "I love you," Thomas whispered to the air. just in case it were true that spirits existed, in case Ernest's soul was there. Then he looked at the bath. With razor in hand, Thomas Barrow got in, and said goodbye to the world.